rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to do a roll call.
Mayor Steve Feldman.
Present.
Councilmember Jerry Spake.
Present.
Joe Milbauer.
Present.
Robert Bauer.
Present.
Rich Skorda.
Here. Okay, moving on to it. I have a motion tonight to approve the tonight's agenda.
Make that motion.
Mr. Bauer makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Bauer makes a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Before we adopt tonight's consent agenda, I want to pull out item E for clarification on lease amendment with the American Tower, Resolution 2018-13. Otherwise, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion.
Mr. Skorda makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Roy says second. For any further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, on that lease amendment, one of the questions we have, Joe, would be the formula for breaking that down. So can you explain that to us a little bit?
Yeah, so when the lease was originally signed in 1999, they were paying $1,000 a month with 3% escalators every year. Added to that total, the last revenue stream in 2017 was around $30,000. So this lease was supposed to go through 2024. By extending the lease out beyond that, as the terms are listed in the packet here, they're going to keep with that same rate structure of increasing in 3% every year, but they're also going to pay the city a lump sum of $65,000 just for extending the agreement.
Right, so we have a one-time extended the 5-year term periods, then we have a monthly and yearly lease for the next 40 years after that if they renew. Right, but your question was how we receive.
Well, that's what I wanted to explain to the public is that the $65,000 is not just spanned over 40 years. So,
No, that would equate to about $135 a month, and that's what we
Yeah.
expect that. So it's a one-time charge to allow them to have 8 5-year term renewals, lease periods for renewal, and then there's a monthly lease by the year for the next 40 years with a 3% escalator. It's a good deal for the city. Any other clarification you need on that?
no, that was it.
Mr. Mayor, will that money be going in the general fund? Is there a location where we've dedicated these funds for?
I actually was speaking with the finance director about that earlier today, and I think what we decided upon is we'll go through the steps to get approval to sign into this agreement. Once we get the proceeds, we'll come back to council and figure out what we want to do with those monies.
You know, I think the capital improvement plan would be a great place to allocate those funds.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we'll wait and see when we, okay. Darcy?
Because right now, the rent payments do go into the general fund. That is part of the budgeted item in the general fund.
All right, any others? We'll meeting open to the public. Anyone sign up for this tonight?
We need to do the resolution.
Oh, we had a resolution on that. That was part of the consent agenda, right, or not?
We don't know.
So we have to bring it back in?
Yep.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve this?
Yes, motion and second.
So I have a motion to approve a lease amendment with American Tower, Resolution 2018-13.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Barr makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Bill makes a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now, moving over to the public. Anyone sign up?
Amanda Sandwell.
Amanda Zambone, 723 Roanoke Street Northwest here in St. Francis. Just wanted to first of all thank you guys for listening to residents. I know the last time I was here, you guys formed a committee to look into issues brought forth with the animal control. I just wanted to thank you for doing that. I don't even think you've maybe met yet, but I do appreciate you at least taking time to look into it and listen. I'm here basically today because I wanted to ask you guys to consider other options. Maybe you already are, but for our service provider for animal control, I know personally I have a lot of concerns. I'm petrified of public speaking, but I made it out here do this because it's that important to me. The number one thing that concerns me is cash only. There are a lot of people in the city that cannot afford a big sum of money in a short amount of time. The fees are ridiculously high. There's an impound fee, there's a boarding fee, and then there's up to potentially $80 an hour for a patrol fee. There are other cities in the area that don't have things like that, especially when you combine the extremely high fee and then cash only. I mean, if you look at the population in St. Francis that are already, they're coming to you about water prices, their money, they don't necessarily have a lot of extra money. And now you're potentially permanently removing their animal from them because they can't come up with cash. I think that's wrong. Let's see, yeah, and I guess my other point was that if they're going to be removed, that they need other options. Credit cards is number one. The DMV is accepting them now. I know that there was an issue brought forth by the ACO about disputing charges, and that people don't want to pay for animal impound, so they'll just dispute it. But you can't dispute credit card things because you don't want to pay them. That's not a valid reason. I mean, if that was true, there wouldn't be a credit card industry. Everyone would buy a big screen TV and then dispute it, and then it's fine because I didn't want to pay it. I mean, that's not how it works. On her website, it says that she's available 7 days a week by appointment, so weekend days count as impound days. Is that true for St. Francis as well? Because there's at least one instance by Susie Sorrow where her dogs were tagged. One was chipped. They got picked up on a Friday. They were not notified until Monday. So if the weekend is not, you're not going to be notified that your dogs were picked up on a weekend, then they shouldn't be counted as impound days. Because now if it's Friday, you're not notified till Monday. You've got like 4 of your days burned up already. You've got 1 more day to come up with, again, cash. And it's just, I don't know that everyone has the same resources available to do that. And I don't think that it makes them irresponsible pet owners because most people's pets get out on accident. Most people do not let their dogs run around. There's always a few. And I would support maybe higher fees for repeat offenders. But for the average person who had an accident, their dog got out, fees should not be so punitive, for an accident. And I guess that's all I have.
Well, I want to say to you that I was going to say this from my mayor report, but seeing as you brought this up, I'll just bring it out now. But I did get your email, and I responded back to you, and I thank you for thanking us, because I don't get many thank yous in this job, so I appreciate that. But I want to say to you that the committee hasn't met yet, because we've had some other things that are a little more priority right now for development. But we have every intention of doing that, and I was called by Candy Gillis last week, and I said to her, and I will have her there to interview and that, but I will tell you something. I've had the police chief look at 4 different companies. Dover's one of them, Gratitude Farms is the one we have now. There's also Quiet Oaks Kennels and online retrievers. We are looking at everything, okay? Our decision will be based on what's best for the majority of our residents in the city of St. Francis. Not the city of East Bethel, not the city of Ham Lake. So what I want to emphasize to everyone out here is this will be a fair, impartial, decision, okay? Not based on Facebook posts or emails. I've had enough of all of it, okay? And what I can tell you is this is one of those polarized situations I've ever seen built up. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's either or, for or against. One North Pole, one South Pole. There's nothing in the middle. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. So our decision will be based on, again, what is best for the majority of our residents here in this city. What she does in East Bethel is East Bethel's business, and in Ham Lake, that's their business. I'm concerned about our residents and our dogs. I believe ACO, an animal control officer's main responsibility is to get that dog in the best shape back to that that family who loves it in the fastest, best responsible way. That should be their job. I happen to be an animal lover myself, so that's what I would like myself. So I've read a lot of documents. I've had a lot sent to me. I've looked at a lot of different things. I've heard complaints from the state level to the city level to county level. I talked to county last week and all this. I've done a lot of research on this. So I'm going to again base my opinions along with Jerry Tabate will be on the council with me, and Todd Schweiger, our police chief, will be on that, and we'll have some interviews and we'll make a decision based on that. But I just once again say to you, the people who are doing these Facebook posts, you're not doing yourself any good service. You're doing yourself a disservice, because I don't go by Facebook at all, period. If you want to talk to us, you come to a meeting like this, like you are now, and discuss it with us openly and face to face. I don't like threats about people saying that you're in a shit storm, and I'll use that word. That's what was said to me in an email on April 2nd here today. Threats like that don't do any good to anybody. You come in here with common respect, common courtesy, leave your anger at the door, talk the issue, and we will discuss it with you and give you the best response we can. Once again, this is in my opinion, once again, ACO is to get that dog in the best shape it can, quickly as back to the family that loves it, in the most responsible, prudent way that they can. And so that's what this issue is about. It was brought to our attention by a resident of St. Francis, and that's why we're looking into it. So just once again, stop the Facebook post, stop the email, and let us do our job for you. Okay? Thank you very much for coming forward. I appreciate that. Okay, anyone else reading open to the public?
Wendy Warren.
Wendy Warren. Okay.
Hi, I'm not very able to.
Just someone grab that mic.
Well, I'm gonna make your job a little bit harder about the animal control thing, because I also would like you to address your ordinance, your city code. Because I think that makes, no matter who you hire for the job, a really hard job. Because your city code really interferes with what the animal control officer in the state statute says. Your city code says if the owner doesn't pick up the dog after 5 days, the ACO is actually supposed to euthanize the dog. And it says that the ACO has to be open for 4 hours every day, 7 days a week. And right now, your current ACO is, I think, kind of a one-man band, and also a firefighter, and kind of from, I used to work for the city of East Bethel, and when I worked there, that person responded to a lot of the daytime fire calls, and was kind of, you know, with a group of people, that person that responded to a lot of those calls. Now, I'm sure that she can do both functions, and I'm sure that a lot of the other ACOs are doing a lot of, I know one of the other ACOs that you're looking at has maybe more cities than the current ACO, so is running out to other cities, and I don't know how many people that person has running out to the other cities. So probably is running out to get more animals, you know, so I don't know how many hours that person can be open, but your code has to definitely be looked at as part of your committee, because there's things in here that, you know, unless it's the owner specifies after seizure that the dog should not be used for research, there's things in here that are just like, there's no way that the current ACO could ever do that. And you know, as a resident of East Bethel, when I go to the dog clinic, I'm always like the 10th person that got my dog licensed, and that's in April. So I never go on your website, I never see anything that says get your dog licensed right there. And whenever we have the dog clinic, and I'm not trying to compare, but I'm just telling you that, first of all, we didn't charge for licenses because, and a lot of cities don't, because it's promoting that you get your dog licensed, so then the ACO can call and say, do you have a dog with this license number, and find that dog owner. This kills people. You guys seen what happened. You saw what happened over there. And, you know, I mean, I just lost a dog in November, and yeah, it was really polar and pulled at my heart. If that was my grandkid's dog, I would have fought like crazy to get that dog back. I'd still be fighting. I'd be giving money left and right. So, you know, I'm sure you guys understand too why it's so crazy still out there about it, and why somebody, you know, on all sides are fighting so hard. And none of us know the real story, and never will. And you guys have gotten repercussions from it, a lot of people have. But all this stuff has to be cleaned up before you can probably actually go out and award a new contract to any of these 4 people. I don't care who it is, just as long as if something happens to one of my 2 dogs when they get out, I can actually go find out what I need to do. The other thing is all these companies say that they're gonna advertise on Facebook that your dog is lost, and your ordinance says that it's supposed to be posted at City Hall. And we all need to remember that a lot of people don't have access to internet. So pick a couple places, County Market, City Hall, that it needs to be posted. Because not everybody has internet, or not everybody uses it. Yeah, it might be 2018, but it still needs to be posted somewhere, somehow. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I do agree, by the way, euthanasia should be the last thing you do. Absolutely the last thing you do. So we can look at that. Kate, can you tell us anything about the ordinances at this time that we have of dogs and whatnot?
Mayor and council, without having them in front of me, I wouldn't want to misquote our ordinances, but it is something we can look at.
So we'll take that into consideration as this committee needs and stuff like this. Like, once again, this is, we're not taking sides anywhere along the line. What we're trying to do is get the best care and so that, you know, if it's a website that we need to upgrade or some posting at different sites, like you say at the County Market, we'll take it all into consideration. We want to get this right, that's for sure. So, thank you very much. Anyone else open the public? Okay. All right, well, then moving on to new business. Rivers Edge Development Lake Town Homes LLC Plan Unit PUD Resolution 2018-14.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The first planning item before you tonight is a PUD development plan for the Rivers Edge community, located to the north of Rum Rivers Bluff PUD. As you may recall, the applicants were before us in December with this concept plan showing approximately 220 homes on 93 acres. They took the feedback that they heard that night, and the applicants are now before you with a PUD development plan, but it's only on the easternmost 42.5 acres that you see outlined in this white crosshatched area up on the screen. The area shaded in blue is within
Excuse me, can we turn the
Yes.
lights down so everyone can see this a little better? Thank you.
Yeah, so the area in question would be this 42.5 acres here. And then this particular area in blue is within the Rum River Management District, and that portion of the property would be developed as phase 2 at a future point in time. So jumping right into the review for phase 1, here's the PUD development plan as proposed. The density of the overall development is at 2.3 units per gross acre. That's below the maximum of 2.5 allowed for PUDs. So the overall development is allowable from a unit number perspective. The proposed land use of single-family homes is going to be consistent with the land use to the south, and it's also consistent with the land use guidance for this property in your comp plan. It's my understanding that one of the concerns that was raised at the public hearing is that this specific phase is too dense, because standing alone it does come in at 2.6 units per gross acre. But staff would argue 2 things against that point. We do know for a fact that the Rum River management area is going to develop at a much lower density simply because we have an overlay district in that area. So we know that there is no risk that density is going to go up once phase 2 comes into play. And 2, the developer really could just play a numbers game. They could take lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 here, put that within an outlot, and then technically that would bring that gross number down to where it would need to be for this phase, but we don't see how anyone benefits by requiring that at this step. So we are comfortable recommending the council continue to view density based on the overall gross acreage. Setbacks proposed throughout this development are shown on page 6 of your report, and they are very consistent with the setbacks that are used elsewhere in this community. The only thing that we'd call out is that the applicants are proposing a 30-foot rear yard setback along this northern property line here, when technically a 35-foot setback should be required based on A3 zoning to the north. Deviations like this are permissible as part of a PUD, and this particular one is supported by staff because the city does anticipate that the land to the north will become urbanized within the next 5, 10, 15 years. And once that happens, the rear yard setback that would be required is 30 feet, so it's just matching what we anticipate will be required in the future as this area completely develops.
All right, but one thing I see on page 6 here, it says that said 3 of the lots currently shown incorrectly.
Yep.
Lots 1, 2, and 3, block 6 shows 25 rear setbacks.
That would be these 3 lots right here. I did inquire with the developer as to why those were shown that way. They said that was simply a mistake. They're to be consistent with every other lot.
So that'd be 30 then?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was on, okay.
Aside from the northern property line setbacks, the only other deviation being sought from your code is the creation of smaller lots for detached townhomes over in this portion of the property before you tonight. Staff also supports that lot flexibility, as allowing the developer to create those smaller lots is a really good way to help the city improve its life cycle housing inventory, and that's one of the goals the city would like to accomplish in its comp plan. Moving on, the proposed subdivision would fully subdivide phase 1 of this property, and importantly, the development would provide critical transportation connections in this portion of the community. We have the 2 existing entry points down into Rum River Bluffs, which were intended for roads to continue through. Those would be continued as part of this development, and then they're also providing these 3 entry points to the property to the north, and those will ultimately connect to either A or B up here, 239th and 241st. And those will be extremely important connections for everybody in this particular area because that's what's going to provide the additional access points to this land. We have the Rum River off to the west. You have just the features and how things have developed are really limiting how we provide additional access points. So allowing this development to continue further north is really going to be the solution out in this particular area of the city. Moving on to infrastructure, page 9 of the report, the city engineer has completed a full review of the proposed plan sets, and they do find that the proposal can be conditionally approved at this time. Our engineer is present over here to answer any of your specific questions, but to summarize the findings, the streets as laid out are generally acceptable. Some minor adjustments are going to be needed, but nothing that can't be handled between now and final plan. Water and sewer plans generally look good, and construction just needs to meet your minimum city standards. Grading is proposed, needs some minor adjustments, but nothing that's really a problem. Hydrant locations have been reviewed by really all parties, including your fire chief, and we found that those were acceptable. And then sidewalks and trails are going to be provided throughout the development. That was something that was very important to your planning commission. As you look up on the screen here, the lines in green represent 5-foot sidewalks. The lines in red are 8-foot trails. So that's the eastern portion of the development. And then this would be the western portion. So we're continuing kind of the trails from Rum River Bluffs up to the northern property line. Everything else is served by sidewalks. Moving on to environmental impacts, this development does not trigger the need for a mandatory EAW, so they did not do that type of an environmental review. We're below that threshold of units. Proposed wetland impacts that are proposed out here can't be overcome. We don't see any issues there. And there are no floodplain areas within phase 1 that could impact this development. With regards to park dedication, the comprehensive plan does guide this area of the community for both a mid-sized park and then a small passive park. And phase 1 is going to accomplish a portion of that goal in creating an active park for both this development and for Rum River Bluffs to the south. Outlot A, which is what you see up here on the screen, is 6.26 gross acres in size. But when you look at that, really only 2.64 acres is really usable for city parkland, given the ponding up there, given the wetlands, and just given how things are situated. So staff is recommending that credit only be given for the land shown in green if the city does accept this outlot as parkland. This land, as you see it here, represents roughly 60% of the requirement for phase 1 in park dedication. So the remaining cash and lieu balance would then be satisfied by 40% of the required lot fee according to your 2018 fee schedule. On page 15 of the report, you'll see a notation that the city did notice a public hearing in front of your planning commission for an interim use permit to allow the applicant to complete some early grading of the property, but a subsequent review of code did determine that that IUP was not necessary for developments because we have an engineer who's reviewed all these plan sets and code deems that it's not necessary. So In order to move forward with early grading if they want to, what they would need to do is enter into a separate developers agreement with the city. And you'll see in the report, we've outlined some conditions for such, if they'd like to move forward with that. And then finally, because this is a PUD, there is going to need to be a rezoning of the property to establish the PUD overlay district. But the ordinance to make this change is going to be delayed until the final plans come before you to allow the applicant time to address the recommended conditions of approval. Before concluding and letting you talk about this and ask questions, I do want to point out 3 additional areas of concern that were raised at the public hearing. I have them up on the screen here. The first is the anticipated impact to the intersection at 235th and County Road 72, and what improvements are going to be made to the county road to accommodate the existing development and the proposed development. And to that, we point out that this development wasn't unanticipated. This actually was approved for a very similar development dating back to 2006. The comprehensive plan has anticipated this level of development for many years now. And it's my understanding that when Rum River Bluffs was approved, the city and county since that time really have been sitting down talking about what are we going to do on this corridor to address access, to make things safe. Those discussions do continue to this day. I know our city engineer has been meeting with them, I think as recently as just last week, and he's available here tonight again to answer any specific questions you have about that intersection and transportation. The second concern that was raised was a desire to see a fence installed along the northern property line of the development. But much like the Woodhaven development that was recently before you, there's simply nothing in code that the city can use to compel the developer to actually construct a fence along that entire property line. This landowner or the landowner to the north really feels that a fence is necessary. Your code sets out regulations to build a fence, and either could implement their rights under your city code. And then finally, concerns were raised about how this development could impact wildlife, and some question why the DNR had not provided a formal review for this particular phase. To those concerns, we point out that this portion of the community has long been guided for urbanized development, and there's really nothing unusual about having urbanized development up against agricultural land. And I'd also point out that upon my return from vacation, I did check in with the DNR. I made sure that they received all of the information on February 20th. They did. And they indicated that they just didn't have any formal comments for phase 1 because that's outside of the Rum River Management District. So they really didn't have anything to say about this one, but they were very interested once phase 2 comes forward to make sure that they had those plans, and at that point you can expect to hear quite a bit from them. In conclusion, the City Council is asked to make a decision on the PUD development for River's Edge here tonight. The Planning Commission did consider this at their March 21st meeting and voted 4-2 in favor of the request. The 2 dissenting votes, as I understand it, cited concerns about traffic and wildlife as the reason they were dissenting, but the majority felt that development on this property at this level has been anticipated for a long time, and that further development was needed to really help push the whole issue of how are we going to improve County Road 72, and that the concerns about wildlife and the environment really just weren't merited. The council may approve, deny, or table the application here tonight, whatever you feel is necessary. Because you're authorizing staff to prepare an ordinance to rezone this property to a PUD, we are looking for a minimum 4/5 vote here tonight. Based on the application date of February 15th, the decision needs to be made by April 16th, but we can extend that deadline out an additional 60 days if needed. We do provide template motions and suggested findings of fact at the end of the report, as well as recommended conditions. So with that, I'll turn it over for discussion.
Okay, a couple of things I want to bring up here about. First of all, the county is going to be doing a traffic study at 235th and Rum River Boulevard this summer. So we already had that motion from last year, so that's a good thing. That has never been done before, so it was a default speed limit of 55 that they put out there. So now they'll do a study and see if that, what the results will be. We'll have to wait and find out, but of course, at least that's a start. Also, can you explain, what I like about this development, by the way, is the fact that there's slab-on-grade homes for senior, no steps and stuff like no stairs and that's a good thing, I think, for the future. I've always thought that was great as our population gets older. And also, there's some different sized lots between city lots and then, of course, little larger lots in the second phase, I believe, that's coming up. So can you just tell me, the second phase, is it going to have some acreage lots or just slightly below acreage lots or bigger lots on the Rum River?
Sure. Well, until we get the phase 2 development, I can't tell you exactly what's
That is
coming,
the plan,
but what we heard at the concept plan is, yes, this This was more of kind of your senior living, patio homes, association probably maintained for the older members of our community. We then get into more entry-level lots for that segment of the community looking to buy their first home, decent price points. And as we move west, especially once we get on the river, that's when we're talking about the larger lots that are going to have the higher price points. That'll be a much probably higher quality larger home in that portion of the development.
Yeah, I like the mix of it, but you know, I also want to point out to the public that this started way back in 2004 and then 2006. And then of course the economy took its fall and that affected this development. And one of the concerns you have from a letter from a gentleman about you know, how the road systems ties into the second phase, and that he doesn't believe that it should be dependent on the second phase. I had a discussion with our community development director, Kate Thunstrom, about that today, and you know, no one knows what the economy is going to do. So, you know, we don't know if we're in the first year of a 5-year run here or a 5th year of a 5-year run. So we don't know. But what Kate told me was that at that time, we'll see how it pans out. At that time, the second phase comes into play. Adjustments or modifications will be made at that time. So nothing's etched in stone on the second phase, as I'm clearly understanding. Just the first phase is what we're dealing with now, and then hopes of the second phase coming to fruition, we'll deal with it at that time. But I like the overall plan as far as the concept. I think, again, as a builder myself, slab on grades, less steps. As seniors get older, you go from salt box 2 stories, modified 2s, down to bramblers, and then to a slab on grade for no steps at all, which is nice. So and I like the mix of the city lots, which is basically 4 lots to 1 acre. You know, basically about under 11,000 square feet per city lot today, and then of course your acres lots to run there. I like that a lot. So that's good to me. So I hope that addresses that one concern. You saw that letter. I'm taking that you saw that, yeah, and that one concern I had. So nothing against this. It's something for phase 2. We'll have to see how it plays out. There's going to be a temporary road here, I understand right now, for construction and access now, and that will be permanent to the second phase. Is what I'm understanding about that.
Correct. That would be basically between, I believe it was lots 7 and 8 is what's proposed. No, it's between 6 and 7 right here. You can see this drawing. Those 2 lots just wouldn't be allowed to be platted until such point in the future when we had additional access to this area. I think the details and the specifics of how we would mark the date upon when that came out, we would continue to talk with the developer about that, put those in stone once we come forward with the final plans. But yes, temporary access is what is proposed.
Okay, let me ask you this then. As far as the study by county can change that too. I mean, from if they decide that there's a need for it because of the population being increased in the area, traffic flow increasing, they can decide if they want to go temporary, permanent, whatever they want to do. Is that possible or no?
Well, it's a county road, so they are absolutely going to be at the table talking about what is most appropriate there. From the city's perspective, and we can let the engineer chime in here too, but I would think that it's most important from the short term to make sure our construction traffic is going through there and not impacting our roads down in Rum River Bluffs and impacting those residents. Keeping that open for construction traffic for as long as possible.
And one thing I want to emphasize to the public, this development is 200 homes in total between 2 phases. But it's not something that will be built out in 1 year. This will take over 5 years, you know, in theory, if the economy flows good and everything works out right. It's the first phase and the second phase. So you're not going to see 200 homes up in an instant. Okay, so you have to understand it's probably, I think, what are they planning for the first phase and within like the first year build out type of thing like that? Or?
Yeah, build out would begin in this particular area, and then really depending on demand, I'm assuming, developer can speak to this, they would continue to build out in this direction.
Yeah. But like I say, they planned it pretty much over a 5-year period, so it's not going to be, like I say, 200 homes coming up in a year. That's just not going to happen. I mean, I'm sure they would like that, but it's something I'm not going to say.
We don't anticipate.
So, all right, I want to open this up for discussion with the council. Rich, you want to start there?
All right. Well, as I was at the public hearing and points that Ben pointed out, yeah, there's just a lot of feedback from the residents from the neighborhood just to the south about traffic. I can't blame them, but I don't know what you do. Just like the Woodhaven development we saw within the last few weeks, we're beholden to somebody else to deal with our traffic issues when we have these neighborhoods that butt right up against the county road or against 47. I'll really be anxious to see what the county comes back with a plan for 235th. But I do think it's going to be manageable, like you mentioned. It's not going to get built out overnight. You know, and there is, you know, regarding that fence, you know, I don't know how we got to the point where we believe that if somebody does something to their property, they need to put up a fence to keep people out of my yard. We heard that comment from neighbors in Woodhaven, your comments here. If somebody's gonna develop in the lot behind me, and I don't want them on my yard, I put up the fence. I don't expect them to put up the fence. Keep that in mind the next time you see one of these coming in. You know, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that this was gonna happen. We heard that from a couple of citizens. You know, one citizen said had they known something like this was going to go in right to the north end, they wouldn't have bought their house. Well, you know, as you're plunking out a lot of money on a pretty big investment, I think it's incumbent on people, stop up at City Hall, ask questions, go online, go look at a zoning map, go look at a comprehensive plan. We don't do any of this stuff in secret. So anyway, I think it's a good use for this land. I am a little bit concerned about 235th until I see what the county is going to do. But I think that's balanced by the fact this isn't going to be built out all at once. I did have a question either for Craig or maybe for Paul, and I guess we deal with it today, but I don't know what the answer is. What do you do when you remove snow right now and you just have a dead end? There's no cul-de-sac. What do you do? Are we going to be pushing snow into the adjoining property? I don't think that person would like that. I mean, what do you do when you have these road stubs that just end?
Mayor, council, generally when there's a dead end like that, there's typically a barricade sign. We will pile snow to that barricade sign. It generally does not go on the adjacent property.
Okay.
And we did make some comments if there's some of those stubs that have to be plowed, they do have to put temporary cul-de-sacs. Some of them they won't have driveways, they don't have to. But if they're gonna have driveways where Public Works has to plow, it has to have a temporary cul-de-sac.
Okay. All right, yeah, I don't think I have any other questions. And the folks brought in, and we had a lot of good dialogue from the neighbors. I don't want to quelch any of that stuff, but, you know, I think by definition, as we're going to grow, you know, you're going to have urban meet rural at some point, just by definition. You know, and this happens to be moving that split another, you know, quarter mile north. In a few years, it's going to move a little bit farther north, at 239 through whatever those intersections are. So anyway, I guess I'm all for it.
And I just want to say something here. You know, it's like I've told staff this now lately, but progress is a double-edged blade, double-edged sword. You have people that are going to like the progress that we go, and there's people that are going to be hurt by it. People that never initially moved out in our city for the rural feeling of it are now facing the urban development that we're doing. But there's the people that want the targets and the development. And targets and things like that are not going to come here. Quick Trip came here because they had a market study done and saw a way for them to make a living here or make money here. So that's what it comes down to. It's a double-edged sword. You know, we can stay back 20 years and then those people will like it, but then other people in the urban area won't like it. So we're in a rock and hard place. We're trying to do this as smart and common sense as possible. But is there going to be some pain through the development period of time? Yes, there is. Will it all work out in the long run? We hope it will. We'll work to do that, to get it to that end result. But like I say, you know, it's like, you know, through development, you may have, today you have one grocery store, you may have another grocery store down in the future. I'm sure Bob King may not like that, but the fact of it is that's part of progress. So there's always, again, two sides to look at it, a positive and a negative. And we're looking at the broader, bigger picture of the city of St. Francis in the total. And that's how we have to look at it. We can't look at it just from the rural or the urban. I moved out here for the rural feeling. I'm sure other people did here too, by the way. But things change, times change, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So we just have to do it in a responsible way, and hopefully that will turn out to be the best way for the city at large. So, Rob, I'll turn over to you for discussion.
Ben, my question is about the park on page 13. Is phase 1 and phase 2 utilizing this entire space, or will phase 2 have its own park location?
Phase 2 is anticipated to take care of the passive park that's called for by the comprehensive plan. As part of the concept plan, what we were looking at was preserving as much land as we could along the river. That also helps to preserve one of the goals of your comp plan in the Burn River Management District, which is to protect that water body. So the less development we have on there, the more we can control runoff, the less runoff that goes into the river, the cleaner it is. So that has yet to be discussed in terms of how much acreage, but that would be what's envisioned. And then this would be the active area.
Because I'm confused with the 9.6 acres for all phases. And then broken down, phase 1 is 42 acres, which means 4.25 acres should be allotted.
Yep.
And this area doesn't meet that, so I just want, for my clarification and understanding, and the public's understanding of however that concept goes, and that formula to get to $948 a unit.
Yep.
For whatever that's called, the parks and parkification.
Mhm. Yeah, to put it as simply as I can, anytime someone develops in the property, be it residential, commercial, industrial, your city code does require that they're bringing more people into the community, either workers or residents. That in turn is going to create a burden on your park system because people want to be outside, they want to have picnics, their kids want to use these facilities. So your plan looks at the overall community and says, how much parkland do we need to service our community? Then looks at where are the locations that are most appropriate, because we don't want to overbuild our park system and have a financial burden on our hands. In this case, the comp plan has identified a need in this area because we have so many residents in Rum River Bluffs and because we envision so many more residents to the north. With this opportunity, we're able to provide this active park. In a residential setting, it's a 10% requirement, so we're dividing that requirement between phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 being 42.5 acres, 10% of that is 4.25 acres of usable land. We're looking at this parcel, which is 6-some acres in size, and we're saying not all of that is usable.
Right.
We're only going to credit you what is actually something a person in St. Francis can use. That is about 2.35 acres, if I remember off the top of my head. So because there's a difference between the 2.35 acres and the full 4.25 that they have to provide, they then have to pay cash in lieu for the land that they're not dedicating. And the city's fee schedule has a formula in it that tells us how much they have to dedicate per unit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe?
I think my biggest concern is the traffic, which I think, like Rich said, will be slowly built in. Hopefully by then we can get it addressed, given it's a county road, and at their mercy. And if I read right, you said when it gets up to 239th, they would allow that to be an access?
Correct.
Okay. But other than that, I don't really have much.
Jerry?
I like the idea of having the road construction, or the construction trucks going in between, you said it was lots 6 and 7, or 5 and 6, or whatever it was. We kind of had that same issue over in Ivywood when they were building up the ponds. And when there's a lot of heavy trucks driving on a residential road, it really tears the heck out of those roads. So by actually having that separate entrance there, it would keep the trucks out of development right to the south, and that's going to save those roads a lot.
Yeah, because I think they come off a 9-ton to a 7-ton road, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think so, and that's what it is. But I mean, it's kind of the same argument with the garbage trucks. You know, you get a 5-ton road, and garbage truck is 64,000 pounds. You know, that's a 30-ton truck driving down a 5-ton road. I mean, no wonder why they rear up. You know, but I mean, it's not just garbage trucks, it's school buses, it's everything, you know. So any little bit that you limit them it just prolongs the life of the road. So I like that idea. Anybody that lives back in Ivywood area, they knew how bad those roads were, and they got bad real quick. Those roads were only 12 years old, and they're supposed to be 30 years old, and it was because of having the road construction ground on it. So I like that idea. In general, I'm in favor of this development. I like the idea of having a park there and actually not giving them credit for swampland. You know, because all too often, I do think the city gets the whole, you know, oh yeah, you got all this parkland, but 90% of it's swamp and it's really not usable. I mean, it's green space, you know, but there's just not a whole lot you can do with it. So I like the idea of holding the development's feet to the fire. So in general, I'm in favor of this plan.
Okay, is it the developers here, I take it, right? Do you want to come forward and say anything, or address anything yourself, or?
Sure. I am Dale Wilmering. I live in Waconia, Minnesota, and been working on this project now since the late last summer. And initially, we thought we'd take the existing plat that was approved back in 2006 and do that. Speak with city staff, who've been great to work with, and their outside engineers. We came up with this concept, which incorporated the park. I think is pretty important because down below in the River Bluffs neighborhood, I don't think they have a park in that neighborhood right now. I believe there's a park nearby, we have to cross that busy street. The different life cycles was important to me. You know, slab on grade is a very in demand product right now. It's hard to find that if you're an active adult. I wouldn't say it's necessarily senior living, but it's you know, retired empty nesters up to senior citizens. And you know, pretty proud of the development, and I know things are going well in the development to the south now. They've had 7 or 8 permits already this year, maybe just last month. So I believe the city's going to be running out of lots soon. This you know, keeps that momentum going. Builders are fickle. You know, they build where a building is, and if they start building upriver or some other city, maybe St. Francis comes off the radar for them. So I think keeping the momentum going is important, which is why I've been pushing, you know, my engineers. Marty, we gotta make this deadline, Okay, Dale, we'll make this deadline. But you know, all the feedback from the various yourself, the planning commission back in December, got us to this point. And I wish we could have brought both phases now, but this makes it you know, a small, you know, smaller, easier parcel to adapt. Whether it's 5 years or 10 years, this could be 10 years. I have no idea what the market's going to do. I look at your permits, and maybe we'll get 10% of those. So it'll be 50 permits a year. 5 houses.
I could live with that.
It's going to be 20 houses a year. I don't know, but yeah, I can't see it developing much faster than that. So phase 2, we're not even talking about it right now. We want to get this one, done, get it going. Hopefully, we're building homes.
Have you picked the builders that you'll be dealing with?
Yeah, there's 2 builders that are very active in the city of St. Francis right now, and they have signed a purchase agreement for the first 30 lots, and they want to get going. Let's go. I want to get this going. I can't control the snow. You know, this is a big step tonight, and so it's good to hear the positive comments. The traffic's a concern, and the county access, I want that temporary access. If it ends up being permanent, it could be a good thing too. I understand if it's on a curve, and if it's within a quarter mile of another county, you know, entrance or intersection, where they probably won't allow that, but they might not allow it temporary. So me as a developer, I'm a little worried that now I come back at final plat, and if the county does say we don't want any access there, it's a safety concern, we're going to shut that down. I'm a little worried right now, you know, based on the comments here, we're pretty much, we want that temporary access. I want that temporary access too, but my hands are tied. And I think back in 2006, the same thing was proposed, permanent access, and I believe the county said, sorry, your access is at 235th, and then at 239.
Now, wasn't there some turn lanes that are supposed to be coming on 235th from the last development?
Correct. As I understand it, there is money to help put forward towards those improvements, but Both the city and the county want to make sure we're using those funds as wisely as possible, so if there's a better solution, let's use those monies to implement that versus putting in turn lanes right now and then turning around and doing something different in the future.
But I want to thank you for your professionalism working with our staff, because I've had good compliments from that. You know, like, what the city's looking for is long-term reputable development, and that helps us out and helps the residents out, and gets things flowing smoother, which I like, so. But I want to also emphasize that what I like about this, as I mentioned earlier, is about the mix of your slab-on grades, your city lots, and then your bigger lots and that. Because a lot of times you see in developments in first phase and second phase, it's basically just the second phase is just a copycat of first phase. Same type of homes, same size lots, same thing like that. It's just expanded as they get into after making the money off the first phase, they go in the second phase. But this is a nice mix match. This is really a complementary thing, I think. Works for giving us the bigger homes, like you see on the Rum River on off 7th and Bunker. By the library there, they've got the mix of the bigger homes and stuff like that. But this, again, I like the mix of it like that. Brings it adapts to all the senior years, you know, versus the younger couples and then the people in the mix in the middle that have got a little more accumulated. They want a bigger lot and on their way to retirement type of thing like that. So I think you've done very well on that, and I think it's a compliment to the city. And once again, as I mentioned before, progress is a double-edged sword, so there's going to be some headaches here with the roads and stuff like this. Once again, the road at 55 speed on 235th was default, so there's never a study there. Hopefully, as they see with the population growth and the traffic flow, the county will be wise and make a decision there. But we're at their mercy just like you are. So, but I want to thank you very much for your effort here, and hope this all come out to fruition and make everybody happy. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So barring any further discussion at this time, do I have a motion to adopt the PUD for Rivers Edge Development Lake Townhomes LLC Plan Unit Development Resolution 2018-14? That motion.
Make that motion.
Mr. Real makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sordow makes that second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to TH Construction of Anoka, Inc., variance request, resolution 2018-15.
Well, Mayor, members of the City Council, the next planning item before you tonight is a request for multiple side yard setback variances within the Stonehouse Ridge Second Edition. The development in question is located just to the east of the center of the community, as you can see in the map at the bottom here, to the north of 235th Avenue Northwest and to the west of Crocus Street Northwest. The specific lots in question are lots 24 through 35 on Block 5, and it's really the only undeveloped set of lots, as you can see on this recent aerial of the development. Some of you may recall this development was approved in the early 2000s, and the twin home portion of the development has slowly built out since that time, and that is the area that's kind of denoted in that white hash line again. The 12 lots that you're asked to look at today are in the area outlined in yellow, and their development will complete the twin home build out within this neighborhood. We do provide close-up overheads of the existing units on page 1 of the report, and if you look at them closely, you're going to see that really the two existing units are very similar in configuration, with the main difference being perhaps the size of the garage. I didn't grab specific plans, so I can't tell you the dimensions. But you can see the dormers on the original units were quite a bit larger than the ones on the former units. This unit appears to be maybe a bit deeper. Maybe the developer at some point in time, I believe it was 2005, identified they needed a little bit more square footage, but there were definitely some changes. It's our understanding that that did occur around 2005. They decided market conditions needed to change. They came before the city to get that approved. And the main consequence of that update was that two of the units ended up being roughly 10 feet apart on this particular area that's circled in red. Rather than require the lots to be replatted, the city instead elected to grant a variance to the known problem area. We fast forward now more than a decade, and the lots to the southwest on Crocus Street are still vacant, and those are the ones that are before you here tonight. As the mayor indicated, TH Construction of Anoka would like to utilize those lots to create 6 new townhome or twin home structures, but their footprint, like the 2005 update, doesn't work perfectly with the pre-existing lot lines. Down here is the new proposed units. One of the main differences that you'll see between the two existing unit types is the garages are now on the outside versus the garage being on the interior. So when we're talking about separation distances, we're talking about two garages instead of two livable areas. As shown on page 2 of the report, the specific variances being requested are a 1.1 foot setback variance on lot 25, and that would result in a building separation of 19 feet instead of the desired 20 feet. A 0.7 foot side yard setback variance on lot 30, and that would result in a 19.4 foot building separation. And then finally a 6 foot and a 3.9 foot variance from the side yard requirements on lots 33 and 34, and that would result in a building separation there of 10.1 feet. Comp plan guidance, applicable definitions, and applicable codes can be found on page 4 of the report, and our review of the variance request is outlined on pages 5 and 6. In summary, we do agree with the 2005 analysis that determined the previously established center lot lines for each home obviously results in limited flexibility in what you can do out here, and that any changes to the twin home footprint is going to likely result in nonconformities. We do find the request is consistent with the comp plan, as the city has previously recognized that flexibility in this neighborhood is appropriate, and updates to the building footprints have been needed to facilitate build-up. And we also note that the area in question is guided for these types of units specifically. We believe the request is reasonable as the applicant is seeking the new footprint based on new market conditions and the expectations of current homebuyers, and the fact that the separation of all units is either going to be nearly the 20 feet that was originally anticipated, or no less than the separation that was previously approved for the units in 2005. We do acknowledge that the applicant was not responsible for the lot lines as platted, nor have they driven the housing market in a direction that's requiring the new footprint. And finally, we do not believe that granting the variances is going to alter the essential character of this neighborhood, as this area is guided for twin home development, and this would simply help complete the build-out for that unit type in this portion of the community. The only concern that I'm aware of was a speaker that came forward at the public hearing that wondered how this proposal was going to impact rear yards. But as I understand it, upon learning that there isn't going to be a change towards the rear yards, there was no objection to the request. I would also point out that the city engineer has reviewed these and didn't identify any red flags that stated that if these variances are requested, there would be any type of engineering or drainage issues out here. In conclusion, the applicant is before the council tonight seeking the 4 side yard setback variances to accommodate the new building footprint to allow for completion of twin home development in Stonehouse Ridge 2nd. The Planning Commission did consider this proposal on March 21st and voted 4-2 in favor of the request. The 2 dissenting votes had concerns about the resulting building separations, but the majority did feel that the closest separation isn't going to be different than what was approved in 2005. And like I stated earlier, we're talking about a separation between non-livable space versus a separation of livable space. Tonight you can approve the request, deny the request, or table the items for further consideration. And because the point of this request is to ensure consistency between all 6 of the units, we are recommending that either all variances be approved or all variances be denied. Based on an application date of February 26th, you do have until April 27th to make a final decision here, but you can extend that an additional 60 days. Template motions, findings of fact, and recommended conditions can be found on page 8 of the report. And with that, I turn it back to you for discussion.
All right, well, I want to start this by saying that I understand this comes into play because the market's changed and now that, there's a demand for these lots to be built on, right? Okay, so on page 2, I see that lot 25 and lot 30, there's not much difference there between a 20-foot, a 19-foot, a 20-foot, or a 19.4 and a 20-foot. I understand that. And on lot 33 and 34, the key to this, by the way, in my opinion, is it's garage to garage, not garage to house. I mean, I've seen over 25 years of building out here, I've seen how the houses are becoming so big and the lots are just shrinking. I mean, it's not as though you increase the size of the, I was talking to Kate about this earlier, where you increase the size of the house, but the lot doesn't move in proportion. You know what I mean? The lot stays fixed, so the bigger the house you make, it's got to get someplace. So, I prefer bigger setbacks, but at the same time, I understand it's a garage to a garage. So it's not, basically, because I almost visualize in my mind with a house to a house, it's like someone, their bathroom, look at someone else in their bathroom, waving at each other when they're taking a shower. It's like, it's got out of hand here, but again, this is garage to garage. So it settles a little bit better in my mind about this. But But, you know, I see such large homes going on lots today. I just don't understand where people's like, you would think if you're building a huge house, you want some acreage or some land around it, but I guess people just don't want the upkeep of lawns or whatever. That things change, times change, I understand that. But I just want to point out to the council that, for me, as if I had a garage to garage, not a garage to house or house to house, I'm not that concerned about going down to 10 feet for those setbacks. I don't see any really other red flags. I've seen some signs here about some roof slopes and stuff like that. That, of course, Dave has told me will change when he gets to plan all that. I mean, 612 is one thing, 1212 is another whole thing, but any roofer that can roof it, I guess you can roof it. So that's not a big thing to me, but again, I can go with the setbacks at 10 just because again, garage to garage. So I'll open this up to discussion. Joel, I'll start with you.
I don't see an issue with that. I agree with you. As far as the 19 to 20 is not a huge difference. The 10, like you said, it's consistent with 2005, so it's not a huge issue, but it doesn't become a consistent issue where everybody wants it. Whatever else has to be, I don't have an issue with it.
Jerry?
I'm inclined to approve this. It is consistent with what we've done in the past. I don't know what else there's to say. I mean, it's, I think Ben did a great job laying out the facts, and I don't see anything to tell me not to approve it.
I'd also like to say that there's no cookie cutter plan for everything. We look at everything on an individual basis. So we're not going to say that just because we approved 10 here, garage to garage is going to be in every development. So we look at it as the development as it comes forth to us. So again, there's not a slam dunk that because you did it here, we allow it to happen every other place. That does not exist. So
Mr. Mayor, since these are the last lots that need to be built, so it's not like they're just starting this development and they want to do this. And we're talking about the last unit being built in this development. That's really an issue. So it just worked out that way. I don't think it's an issue.
Rob?
Well, the only thing, I don't have an issue either because I want these lots to be built out. My only concern is, what's the structure going to be? Is it going to be brick faced, or is it going to be?
That I don't believe anybody on staff can answer. We don't have the actual building plan since this is only the variance step.
Because I would like to see brick, even though it is garage to garage, just from a firefighting standpoint. 10 feet is really close. You could have both those houses go up. But I do like the plan of getting these last lots built in.
I wouldn't believe that they would go to the covenants that were in the phases already done. But this is the last part of the development. So
if this development has building standards that must be met, absolutely. It would have to meet those same standards.
Like brick on the front, type of siding, they can use colors, they can use slopes and stuff like that, the roof and all that, so I imagine that's in play already. Okay. Rich, anything?
No, I don't think I have too much to add. Ben accurately described, we only had one person make a comment to the public hearing. He was a landowner just to the west. His concerns were addressed with about 3-yard setbacks, and this doesn't affect any of that. No, I think the developer did a pretty good job of coming up with a way to make these 6 lots work, flipping the living space to the inside instead of being on the outside where it was. I like it.
I think the flip was really the key to it, by making it work. But I want to commend Samatech and Ben on the simplicity of your reports. It's nice to be able to read it and understand it. I like that a lot.
You're welcome.
That's sure I can speak for the council on that too. There's a lot of reading on this particular packet. So, all right. In that case, I'm looking for a motion to accept TH Construction of Anoka Inc. variance request, resolution 2018-50. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Mayor makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bauer makes that second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the HVAC replacement for liquor store.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and your packets tonight for your consideration is a budgeted item that we have a planned replacement for some outdated HVAC equipment in our liquor store. Old units, been there quite a while, since 2002. We'll be replacing with 92% efficiency.
One thing I'm curious about, and I know it's like, this is a 3,500 square foot building, right? From what I understand, Paul told me. And so we have two heat units, two AC units. They're separate, they're not combined, right? So these are not rooftop, these are outside on the ground. The condensing coils for, at least for the air conditioner parts, on the outside, right? So separate units, okay? And this building, as you told me, was built early and then added on to, or years ago, and then added on to and all that? I know it's late in the game, I just was thinking about it, I was talking to Councilmember Muehlbauer, of course, who's in the business of this trade, so, but I'm just saying, it's too bad that when this thing was redone, the ducting wasn't done a little bit more efficiently, that it could have been down to one unit versus two. I know we can't go back and retrofit now at this time. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I just wish it could have been thought out a little bit better, because to me, it's just not that big a building to suffice having two heat units and two AC units, but it's the way it's laid out and, roughed in mechanical wise, that's the way it's going to be. So I just want to bring that up in my thinking about this. I am in construction, so I do think these thoughts. And I realize, going from an 80 plus to a 92 plus is a good thing, more efficient. I understand that, that's a good thing. We have good warranties in place, I take it, with these Bryant units?
Yes, I believe that's laid out in the proposal as far as their
Lifetime of heat exchange. All right, let's see, and this was budgeted for, I take it? When will the work start, if approved?
I'm not sure as far as scheduling. I'm guessing that it would take some time to get it ordered, to approve it, get it ordered.
And I read in the packet that they work with your schedules and stuff like this. All right, I'm going to open up for discussion. Rob, you have anything to say about this?
I'm just a little confused. We're saying it is a budgeted item, but it says that the funds are available in the liquor fund. Is that, am I not understanding that correctly? So it's under your budget, but not the liquor fund profit fund, I would assume, that we took the SCBA money out of, or is that the same pool?
It's the same pool.
Okay, so I don't see that as a budgeted item through the liquor store. I see that coming out of the liquor fund profit fund. Does that make sense? If an item is budgeted through the liquor store to be replaced through the liquor store funding, how are we saying it's budgeted through the liquor fund?
In other words, there's no separate fund, it's a
Look
pool
at the page in your
fund.
back.
Yeah.
Flip to this page.
So the
It'll
liquor
tell
store is
you-
an enterprise fund.
Right,
And
go back,
so any
go back 2
profits
steps. So
they
right
have
here.
Coming out of there.
First
you have to
plan.
pay all
So
the
this is what we
expenses.
plan to go improve, and right up there it tells you the fund is coming out of.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a planned thing we're going to do, it's just steering, it's just coming out of
Gotcha.
a certain
Okay.
account issue.
I just was confused of where the money was coming from.
That's that plan of software. we put into
Gotcha.
last year.
And this is really helpful, I really like this software.
That's great, because you can see it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I had the same question.
And I like, also what I like about,
I'm like-
another positive part too, the public doesn't see is the justification of it. So this is a plan that we put in last year so that we can start working out 10, 20 years on capital equipment, start planning ahead of time so that we don't run into last minute, oh, we need this, where are we gonna get the money? We're planning ahead, doing things gradually, so we don't burden the public, and we spend our money wisely, cautiously. That's why we did that. So we found out from the city of Cambridge that there's a software program that's been in 84 cities around us since 1998, and we incorporated it last year. And each year will get easier and easier and become more effective as time goes on. So that's a big deal. So any other question you have?
That was it, I just was confused of the money.
Okay. Rich?
No, it's something, I think it's something we need to do, keep that, keep our buildings well maintained. Like you said, we've got a plan now in place, go implement it. I assume we don't plan on doing this again for another 12 years if they don't see it in the list of capital improvement plans, so. No, let's move forward.
Okay. Joe?
I have a general question about pretty much all of the items that are looking to be replaced. How many are rooftop combos? Any? None?
There, Nick, console, student.
Not really for storage, for everything.
I think, without counting what's on the police and public works facility, I believe we have over 70 different styles of units, whether they're the AC coil standard furnace, like what would be in a home or residential, or
Rooftop combos.
rooftop combos, or a makeup air unit. We have some garage heaters that are like a tube style heater.
Radiant heat to.
Infrared, radiant heat. There's a wide variety of equipment that.
The only reason I ask is that I know that, like rooftops, obviously they're out in the elements, they don't pass through. When it says there at the end of the usable life, that can be debatable.
Yeah.
And I could argue with you all day.
Yes.
The other thing is going from 80% to 92% is a good thing, to a point. That's where I'm curious about the contract and the service. What all does that entail? Do you know off the top of your head? Or, I mean, for me, I'm interested in that because they change the filters monthly. I don't know. Do they come out for what we're paying for the service contracts?
Sure.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
The service contracts, which is a different proposal here, a different agenda report. I think I do mention in there, we do mention the 70 different units throughout the city. What we asked of these 4 contractors, we have a current or an expired contract that we've gone through and identified all the different points of all of these equipments, different pieces of equipment per building, identified what we wanted them to look at twice a year. They come out in the spring, they come out in the fall. They take a look at a lot of different things, depending upon what kind of unit it is.
Right.
They will replace belts if they're needed, if there's filters that need to be replaced at that time, they will be replacing those filters. If there's anything that needs to be cleaned at that time, like the condenser coil for the AC, they will clean that. But they will go through and take a look at each piece of equipment. All of them were given the same request.
It's basically preventative maintenance.
It's a preventative maintenance program. They help us to identify anything that may be going wrong or coming up as far as future needs.
And does that cover any kind of replacement of parts at all, or is that all additional that needs to be?
That would be on top.
Okay.
Unless it's under warranty.
Yeah, if it's a new piece of equipment and it's under warranty.
Right, and the filter changes in between those 2 dedicated times are done by power people.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, thank you.
Jerry?
No, the rebates, that's through, I'm guessing the gas company then, Connexus or something?
That'll be through CenterPoint, through Connexus, and typically the contractor will handle those payments.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I need a motion to accept HVAC replacement for the liquor store. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Brown makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Brown makes a second. Or any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Now we'll move on to HVAC replacement for the warming house. And by the way, this is maintenance that, how long, just to clarify there, these units have been in place, the 80-plus units have been in the building for how long?
Since 2002.
2002, so that's 16 years, so we got our money's worth out of that. Okay. All right, so let's move on to this warming house.
Warming house is a similar situation as far as the needs there, except it is a single AC unit and a single furnace that would need to be replaced. These were installed in 2001 as original equipment of the building. It is a 80% efficiency piece of equipment again. We I'm sorry, I don't know the exact word.
I'll teach you next time.
Thanks. I can answer any questions you might have.
Well, I want to mention this, if you recall in the beginning here, we got that big box of notebooks and stuff like this. Remember that, everybody? And in there was this City of St. Francis 2017 to 2026 10-year plan, park facilities, addition, rehabilitation, and replacement. And the first thing was a community replace warming house furnace condensing unit replacement for 2018 was planned. The estimated cost was $18,400, but as it turns out it's $6,921. So we're basically a third of the cost, a little more than a third of the cost, which is good. So we planned properly. But how long has that unit been in service?
2001.
2001, so you're older. Okay. Like people, things get old, things need to be replaced, and that's what's happening right here. So it's time before overhaul, and that's the way that goes, I guess. So, do we need any really discussion on this, everybody, or do we pretty much understand the need for it?
The only thing I would say is that the cost of these units, with both the furnace and AC, given you're getting both of them for that price, roughly $6,900. That's reasonable. We're not getting gouged. That's one of my concerns when people come to cities and give bids that we get gouged because we're a city, and it's a very reasonable price.
Yeah, I think your bid process was good. I like the way that you took names off the criteria, so that, and it was apples to apples, apples to oranges. So everybody was bidding on the same thing. I mean, I saw the price differences between the companies involved on the service contracts and stuff like that. So that's the best way to do it. The criteria should be maintained the same, and we should, have it bid out properly. So I think you did a good job on that. So, all right, no further discussion. Do I have a motion to accept HVAC replacement for the warming house?
I'll make that.
Mr. Nate makes that motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Skirdo makes that second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. One last note on just what you referenced, Mr. Mayor, the plans and the strategic plans that we have. I do have updates for everybody. That was my box of goodies. So before you go tonight, I'd like to give everybody some updated pages for them.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to heating, ventilation, and air conditioning service contract for city buildings. Paul?
For your consideration tonight is again the contract that we asked 4 different providers to give us a price on, including our current provider. As our previous contract had expired and we were bringing the wastewater treatment plant online and out of its almost 1-year warranty already on some of that equipment, we wanted to make sure that we had this equipment under a service contract so that we can stay on top of it and continue to maintain it properly. So it's a preventative maintenance contract, as I explained earlier. Twice a year, the companies come out and take a look at our equipment and make sure that it's all in working order for the summer cooling or the winter heating, and do any maintenance that they can at the time, and if anything needs to be fixed, we can take a look at fixing them. And in the past, what we have seen is that when we do have an issue that comes up, as long as we're referencing our service contract, working with that company that has the service contract, they do give us some preferred service as far as pricing and time availability. So we're not in emergency situations if it's something on the weekend or a critical piece of equipment that we need up and running. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
This is basically, basically what you're doing is startups for air conditioning season and startups for heat season. So you're checking the machines, and by doing this, keeping on top of the maintenance, you catch hopefully some problems before they get big and cost us more. So, service contracts are a good thing, especially, and we've been with this company for quite a while, and the pricing from what I saw with the bids was very good. And again, I like how you bid it out so that all the companies involved, I think there was 4 of them total, including what we have. So they all was all the same thing. The pricing difference was amazing to me. The same service at some companies were over between $2,000 and $3,000 more for the same service, which That always amazes me anyways, but still. Do we want to go on a discussion with this, or pretty much everybody's same situation we know, or we want to know we should have it done here?
I have something, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Rob?
And I lost my packet, but,
Okay.
where's this being funded out of?
We typically take these contracts out of our operation and maintenance budgets for each department. There's a line item for building, repair and maintenance, and maybe it's 401. But that is in every yearly operation and maintenance budget for every department.
Okay. So if I understand that right, so if they come out and do their service on, let's say, police and public works building, that comes out of the police and public works fund. Fire department would be out of the general, so on and so forth. Wastewater treatment would come out of that.
When we do see the bill, Darcy and I have worked together and created a kind of a breakdown, if you will, of 9 departments that the bill gets split by.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if work is done in one particular facility, it will go to that
Right.
facility.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then do I have a motion to accept the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning service contract for city buildings with NAC? Got a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. All right, I've got a first by Mr. Bauer, second by Mr. DeBate. No further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes, thank you. Okay. Now, moving on to the WETT program student internship. Paul, want to explain that one?
Mayor, council, and your packet tonight again is our web program that is at St. Cloud Tech. The web program is a water environment technologies where students will study water and wastewater treatment so that they can enter into the water and wastewater field, operate a water treatment plant or a wastewater treatment plant, or maintain any components that may go to those structures. Through the program, students are required to have a water plant internship and a wastewater plant internship. So this is through that program. We have 2 students from that program that are interested in coming to our wastewater treatment plant and working through that and learning as much as they can. Just gives them some field practice and field study. It's a 2-week deal for each student, unpaid. One student is the student that was here last fall as our water plant intern, and one is just a student that wanted to come to our facility. So I'll answer any questions.
Now, that's a 2-week period, right?
The water one is a 1 week, the wastewater one is a 2 week.
Okay, and that, and insurances are covered by their facility, their schools and stuff like that?
In their
Liability
agreements.
insurance? Okay. And of course, it's a good thing it turned out. That was your nephew from the first one, right? He's
Yes.
involved in this one?
Yes.
So I would imagine you want to abstain from this one?
Yep.
But I can't vote for it. All right. Well, I look at his education as a good thing. It's no cost to the public, and I like to show off our wastewater treatment facility in town we can, so since we built it, we're using it. So, any discussion at all?
Great program.
Great program, okay. So, do I have a motion to accept the WETT program student internship?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Brown makes that motion. Any second?
I'll second.
Mr. Brown makes a second. Barring any further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
One abstain.
One abstain. I'm going to put that down there. Abstain.
Thank you.
All right, meeting open to the public second time. Anybody? Nobody has anything to say? Okay. So now I'm going to move this over to the Community Development Director 2017 Annual Report.
Mayor and council, attached is an overview of the Community Development Department for 2017. On page 4, I talk about our economic development, and one thing that becomes clear with the economic development is that there's a lot of need for patience. A lot of these projects are years to months in the making, and many of them you may not see completed until 2019 or 2020, but they are still, all of them are moving forward. On page 5, I discussed the city's ongoing work with both our local St. Francis Forward Plan and a countywide initiative. Both of these items will continue to grow and be part of the development. They have goals that will provide the city with a strong economic benefit, and we'll continue to work through both of those as strategic goals. On page 6, I talk about the housing. For 2017 and what's starting already in 2018, housing has been our most visible success. Our old lots are being sold. Currently, there are only 48 single-family water sewer lots available that are not part of a townhouse development. So we really are coming to the end of our water utility supply. Within the report, I've outlined an additional new 179 units, so that is a positive thing. On page 7 and 8, I discuss what community development is one department that actually is supported by the revenues of our responsibilities. The fees for building and zoning permits support the department increases that come with this growth. I have provided a history on how the building department responsibilities have increased and the revenues that are generated by those needs, along with the value in the community of those improvements as a whole. On page 9, I have addressed the code enforcement, and depending on the resident, this can mean a simple letter to working with our legal counsel. We have 2 properties that are under legal advisement. And then on the bottom, I mentioned some of the major code changes that affect the community development department as a whole, and staff continues to work on the updating and creating forms for the changes in codes and the language. On page 10, I address our ongoing administration. Some of the programs that I inherited were severely out of balance, and we've consumed a lot of time in regards to getting them back on track. Staff working together as a team has helped pull many of these back on track, and we have some real efficient processes that have started, including, the use of permit works and some of the tools that have become available to us. Additionally, the outreach to developers requiring the planning and the data. We have had some great planning tools that have been created over the past year. Having those tools can allow us to continue to market to developers and builders. Following the report is a copy of the letter that will be sent to households, as we need some information in regards to septic maintenance records. This update and ongoing tracking is important as this requires the city comply with the MPCA annual reporting and our comprehensive plan. So this documentation is one that has fell behind over the past years and does require that we get caught up. Once documents are received, we have set up permit works to be able to track and really keep track of that ongoing and forward in regards to reporting. And that is really the highlights of the department. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, let me start here by saying that one of the things on page 10 that you have is conditional use, and this was brought up to us by a resident here, and as I stated in the last meeting, these conditional use permits are put out there, but a little oversight's a good thing, because these people are getting these there, and you get a conditional use permit approved. Well, how do we know 5-10 years down the road this conditional use permit is being serviced the way it was approved? I'll put it like that. So I know there's a lot on all of our plates in the city right now. So we will address this. Okay, it's not something we're ignoring. And I'm about to talk about more stuff like that in my mayor's report. But I'm saying to you, we have a lot of things that we're doing here. We try to prioritize what we can, to get all the things that are necessary to get done quickly to get done. But the conditional use with oversight is a good thing, not a bad thing. Something we have to work with, because I'd like to be able to trust everybody to do that once they got a conditional use permit 5 years ago, but they're still servicing the same way 5 years later. I'd like to believe that. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but in today's world, it's something we should oversight. So to make sure that it's back online or corrected or taken away, whatever. So that's one big thing on that page that I see. The septic, everything else, I think is doing really good. I think the department's, your department's doing good. And again, it's just a lot of stuff on the plate for the past, trying to catch up and go forward. So I'm going to open up that for any discussion. Rich, do you have anything to say on that?
Sure. No, good report. I think your department's doing a great job. And you used the word there that I was going to use. I think hopefully you can stay prioritized on the stuff that needs to be done. Having said that, though, I wish, how should I say this? I know the way we treat, I'll say, problem properties, we're reactive versus we're gonna go out and give letters to people that have 10 cars parked in front of their houses. So I guess if their neighbors don't mind, I guess I'm gonna get off that bandwagon, but, you know, those kinds of things just take staff's time away from stuff that needs to be done. Help our city move forward. You guys got a lot of stuff on your plates, and I really wish we wouldn't have to deal with problem properties and things like that. So if you're listening out there, people that have 10 cars in your yards, get rid of 9 of them, please. And then I would like to have a little discussion about the septic system letter. You want me to keep on going, or do you want to?
No, go ahead, it's your stage.
And I'll commend you on this too, because I own a septic system, and I have never sent anything to the city in 14 years I've been in that house, and I've never gotten a nasty grant, never. But I will ask you why I need to send you $20. And I understand when you get a piece of paper and you're going to go log it someplace and make sure you can keep track of it, that takes staff's time, and staff's time is not free. I don't know how many systems we have and how many properties have a system. I think you made a note in your report, there's at least 500 that are in default, or whatever you want to call it. So I'll make the math easy. I'll say, let's say there's 600. And if we need to give documentation every 3 years, so that's 200 a year you would be processing if everybody sent their paperwork in. So at 200 times 20 bucks, what is that math? I said I was going to make the math easy, but now I'm
4,000 bucks.
So 4,000 bucks. We're really going to spend $4,000 of staff time to keep a track of. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just that when I get my septic tank pumped, they give me one of the 3 copies of here that I did this, and that's all I'm going to send you, right? It's going to take $4,000 to go process 200 of those in a year. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I commend you for doing this. But like I said, in 14 years,
Yeah.
I've never been sent an Instagram saying, hey, you need to do this. And I also want to make people aware that it's my understanding this is one of the things where the state comes up with a requirement, but they don't send us any money to go deal with it, right? Just like stormwater permits. So this is one of those, what do you call it, Joe, unfunded mandates?
Unfunded state mandate.
So that's, you know, don't necessarily get mad at us for, you know, asking for $20. It's a MPCA wants, I assume it's MPCA. They require us to do this, so we got to find a way to go pay for it. I'm kind of questioning if it should be $20, but I'm willing to listen. But, so anyway, that's it.
Mayor and council, the $20 is actually the fee that is set by our fee schedule. So that is an annual fee. We had discussed, you know, the properties in the past and whether or not we expect them to catch these up. However, like you, they have had 14 years of missing that $20 fee. So to get all of this caught up, to get these mailings out, we do expect a majority of them will have the documentation completed, just need to get it turned in. We do have an expectation that there are a handful of properties that have not been doing it and are either draining into a ditch or have a failed system and lovely grass in their backyard. So the fee is something we can review with our fee schedule on an annual basis. Right now, the $20 is the fee schedule that is in place. And we will have the full knowledge of how this is going to proceed once we start pushing it out and actually getting it on track. We do have an annual report for the MPCA we are supposed to be completing. That has been loosely completed the past few years. And we also have an expectation with our Met Council reports that we are reporting septic systems, and that is what drove a lot of this to light, that we were missing these answers because we had answers that we weren't able to give the state as a whole. So.
Okay.
Anything else, Rich?
Nope, that's it. I think it's a good report, and I think your department's doing a great job.
Rob?
I'll start out with the overall report is really good. And I'll get on to the septic one now. My understanding, the way I read this, is that $20 fee would only be collected every 3 years.
Correct.
So it is something that needs to be tracked. You know, I don't think it to be too outrageous in 3 years to actually have your septic pump, because if that leads into your neighbor's yard or whatever, it needs to be tracked. So, I don't think that that's unreasonable, being it's on the fee schedule. We don't ask residents that come into a city building that lives on the sewer system to pay for my water bill. I pay that because I'm on city water and city sewer. So every time a city building toilet is flushed by a resident, I don't go out and ask you guys to pay. So this is a fee schedule that's set up to track septic systems that should be pumped every 3 years. And I can guarantee you, many residents in the city of St. Francis are not doing that. And they need to toe the line so their stormwater fees and stuff like that don't increase because we're pumping our sewage out into our culverts and stuff like that. So I commend you on the septic thing, bringing that back up to standard.
Anything else?
That's it.
Yeah, really what it comes down to is there's the people with septics that do it, and then there are ones that don't, and the fees are basically ones that catch the ones that don't. So it's a hard situation, because I know you take care of yours, but then there might be.
And I have no problem, and like I said, I mean, it needs to be tracked, and that comes at a cost. Maybe I'm haggling over, should it really be $15 versus 20, but anyway, I mean, it's our responsibility, like Rob said, I mean, we need to do it, and it needs to be paid for some way.
Joe, anything?
I think your department's doing a great job overall, with development and everything. Good report, I can't say much that the other guys haven't.
I agree with what Joe was saying. You know, talking about septic systems. The reason why you have a septic system pumped is because the solids are going to build up inside your septic tank, and then those solids are going to overflow into your drain field. Once that happens, it plugs your drain field, and then you're forced to abandon that drain field and build another drain field. The reason why this is important is because when your house is built, you know, they allow for this is where your drain field is going to be, and there needs to be room for a secondary drain field just in case. But say it happens twice, you don't have any more property to put a drain field.
Because they do perk tests and stuff like that.
That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I could take the position that, you know, maybe it's not government's job to make sure that you're getting your septic system pumped. You know, let it fail a couple times and then you'll learn. But the problem is, once it fails a couple times, you're not going to have another place to put a drain field. And at that point, your house is non-livable, because you can't live in a house that doesn't have.
Right, I was on this line out there.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It's, you know, sometimes it's a bitter pill to swallow, and the conservative side of me says, you know, really it's a homeowner's responsibility, and you know, if they're responsible homeowners, they'll take care of their stuff they're supposed to do, and if they don't, they pay the piper. The downside is, you know, if they still don't learn, then you're gonna have a lot, however big it is. You know, if it's big enough to find another, if you're on 10 acres, maybe you don't have a problem. But if
2 acres could be good.
2 acres could be very hard. Because also these drain fields also have to, you know, there's setbacks from wells. You know, there's the wall protection plan, so you just can't put a drain field anywhere. I mean, there's setbacks from your side yard, your backyard, your front yard.
And then again, we have
well.
forecasts that.
So it's not as easy as just do it. So I support it. I mean, it's just one of the things that it's constantly being a homeowner that's being on city water. There's costs to that, and anybody that's on city water is experiencing those costs. Well, I mean, there's also costs of being on city or a septic system. Having it pumped out is just one of those costs.
But, you know, maybe the way to look at this is instead of a negative, it's a helping hand. You know, instead of, we're helping you keep on top of your system.
It's just a reminder for you, you know.
And unfortunately, there's a charge to it, but it's only a 3-year charge, so it's not the end of the world. But to responsible people like Rich and that's a different ballgame. Like, you know, it's one of those things that you damn if you do and damn if you don't, because of other people that don't. But you're right, the ramifications if you don't take care of it. You know, what do you do if you can't put a septic on here on a lot like that? You can't even sell your house.
You can't.
You know, so.
Now, one question I have is, And I heard this a lot with the stormwater fee as well. Is this something that we're going to bill separate, or perhaps should we just assess it and put it into taxes?
Okay.
Mayor Council, the fee comes in when they pump every 3 years, so the pumping companies will actually come in and they'll pick up 10 or 12 permits, and then they assign them addresses and bring it back. So there is a system in place with the pumping companies in the city. We're just missing the data, and a lot of the companies aren't coming in and doing that step because they've learned they can get away with not doing it. So they're pumping as they should, but even the companies know that they haven't been required to tow the line in the city. So
Now we just have to make them know that we want that.
we'll be training this
Okay.
spring.
Anything else, Jerry?
No, that's it.
Okay. Good report, very good report. You know, while we're at this particular point, I want to point out to the public that, you know, there's a lot of things this city's doing that you don't see. For instance, we just last meeting, we passed a PUD for Woodhaven at 55 mobile lots, trailer courts, expansion of that, the second phase of that one. River's Edge is something that's 200 homes over 2 phases. The Meadows is coming back to us this summer here, that's 46 lots. So really, we have about 301 lots over the next 5 years that have potential to be built out. So that's good progress. And then on top of that, we have Isanti Bicycle moving in right across the Public Works. We have Summer Construction putting up a facility north of the liquor store with some retail in that. We're doing a lot of things. What I'd ask for from the public is your patience. I know you want to see shovels in the ground just as much as I want to see shovels in the ground. But the one thing I emphasize here is long-term reputable development. That's been brought up in work sessions. We can't pick the winners and losers, and we don't want to do that. But what we want to do is make sure that the people coming in, like this developer tonight, Woodhaven, all that, that gets the information to us as required and necessary, does it in a way that keeps the flow going. We're not trying to be hard here, but we have responsibility to the taxpayers, and our TIF district, we have responsibility to TIF dollars and stuff. So basically, the main thing is we want to see long-term development here so that years down the road, we can look back and see a city that's progressed in the right direction and not look back at empty buildings saying, why didn't we ask those questions at the right time? Why didn't we take the time to do the due diligence? Why didn't we do it right? And one of my main concerns, by the way, is answering questions, leaving no question unanswered by the public. And for me, as Joe Bielbauer and myself and Mr. Bauer and me were running, we set out in the audience and we didn't get the answers we needed at that time. I want to make sure that we always let the public know that we'll answer the questions that you have. May not be the answer you want, but we know you will know that we gave you the time and the due diligence that you deserve as a resident asking your city council and staff for those answers to those questions you have. So basically what I'm saying is there's things you don't see. We try to keep you informed from the website that we've upgraded. We try to keep you informed through newsletters. But on the other hand, if you want to know what's going on, you just need to call the city up. We'll tell you. Keith Thompson, our community development director, will tell you. We have assisted living coming. We have a rehab center coming. There's some question marks on all that we will be questioning here. But I just want people to know here that development is the key to getting these water rates down. We have been working on this for well over a year. We have a commitment to that, and we will do that, but it does take time. Like that gentleman tonight said about hopefully second phase will come sooner than later. I'd like to believe that too, or hope for that, but at the same time, we'll just have to wait and see how it all pans out. We are always umbrellaed by the economy around us, so that's a big issue here. So I want to say once again that your report stands out as far as the explanations of what we're doing. I just wish the public would give us the benefit of the doubt to say that, I wish Rome was built in a day, but it wasn't. And St. Francis going forward cannot be built in a day, and that's a fact. I wish it could, but it can't. So on that, thank you again. Moving on here, it's time for council member reports. And I will start with you, Jerry.
I've got nothing to report. It's been pretty slow. And I just want to remind everybody we have snow. Please drive slow, drive safe. And it's that time of the year where kids coming out to play, and watch out for kids in the streets, getting out school buses. It's just, be safe. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I had the pleasure of speaking to Todd earlier this week about a few concerns that residents had. I think that meeting went well. see it when it's actually pretty much finished there, rather than as before, it wasn't quite when we went. And I got to meet with Troy Ferguson, went out and talked with him, and just, nothing super specific, and I couldn't stay as long as I would have liked to, so I was on call, but, nonetheless, it was a good meeting, and I enjoyed it. Look forward to talking to him again.
Thank you. Rob?
I just want to say I appreciate the emails and the dialogue between the residents. All good things come to those who wait. I think we're pushing forward with a lot of good things, so be patient.
Rich?
So I had two things. Just remind you to bundle up if you're going to one of the Twins games here during this 10-game homestand in the next week and a half. And then in my mailbox today, I received I'll call it an invitation from the United States government to participate in something for the census. So if you got one in your inbox, be sure you go online and I don't know what it's a community something. So watch out for that if you're one of the lucky ones chosen, and if you are, be sure to go up there, and I think it's something you can do online. Pretty easy to do, it looks like. So that's all I have.
All right, well, it comes down to me now. First of all, before I start this, can you look at your calendar, Rob, and tell us, we want to do a finance committee meeting coming up here. That's Mr. Bowers on that with myself and our finance director, Darcy Mulville, so, Mr. Bauer, I'm sorry, Mr. Bauer. Thank you, thank you. Can you do it the last day, 30th, on a Monday?
I can do the 24th, Tuesday. That's when we have set, right?
Darcy, is that okay, the 24th for you? Okay. Tuesday, and would that be, what time?
Anytime. I'm off that day.
Darcy, what's a good time for you?
I'm in the office all day.
Okay, so, how about 2 p.m.?
2 sounds good.
Okay, 2 p.m. on that day, Darcy?
Okay.
Can you do that? Okay. So let me put that down, 2 p.m. on 4/24 at City Hall, okay? All right, good, thank you. Work session's on the 9th, yes. Okay. All right, moving on to my report. As I stated before earlier in the meeting about the animal control, we take this very serious. As I mentioned before, prioritizing. We do have a lot on our plate lately, so we're dealing with the development, and that's a big thing right now. We will be doing this. I discussed this earlier with Councilmember DeVate. And again, the committee is made up of Councilmember DeVate, myself, and Police Chief Todd Schweiger. We will be doing this. We'll be interviewing some people. We'll be getting out the facts, diving into the facts, and see what pertains here. But once again, I just want to emphasize here, Facebook posts and emails really right now don't do any good. Just do a disservice from each side of the North Pole and South Pole polarized areas on this situation. So give us some patience here, give us some time here to deal with this, and we will make the decision once again, as we always do, based on what's best for the majority of the residents of this city. So I get inundated with these calls, with these emails, and these Facebook posts, and it just drives me crazy. But again, the decision has to be made on what's best for our residents, and the animals that they take care of. And once again, I cannot emphasize enough, in my opinion, their whole sole job is to get that animal in the best shape it can, as quickly as possible, to the family that loves that animal. And there's also responsibility on the other side too of the animal, of the family whose animal that is. So, leashing, walking your dog with a bag, pick up poop and stuff like that. There's responsibility. You see this in every city. So we will go over, as that one lady mentioned, look at our ordinances and stuff like that, and see what can be done here. So we'll look at it thoroughly, as we always do. So just to let you know, that is in play. We just discussed this in the Food Back Committee, I think it was on February 20th, so it's not that far, but we have had some other big issues in work sessions, so let us get through the other stuff and we'll get on to that. And one thing I want to discuss here right now is about cuts. This city for a long time has run lean and mean, and this city right now is in a good direction as far as going forward. In doing so, progress, you have to spend money to make money. And I've said this before, I know as a small businessman, I know that happens. I mean, If I want advertising my company, I've got to spend some money to advertise. I mean, it's not, I'm sure it's not going to get a job by my looks. But I will say to you that you have to spend money to make money. So the key, I believe, to this whole thing here is spending the money wisely. We left the tax rates the same by taking advantage by the market out there, the market forces. And I just got a study here by Barb Held of 6 cities total, and 1 county. 3 cities kept the rates flat because they said that by development, along with the market forces out there, they will not have to burden the people with higher taxes, and they can use that money in a good way. 3 cities like Blaine, with a bigger population and bigger median household income, they're raising their taxes. Otsego is one of the ones that are keeping their rates actually lower, and ours has gone down a little bit too. My point being is this: we're not doing this to gain money to spend in ridiculous, frivolous places. We're doing this to spend the money in good places. Like, for one instance, the main reason we're going to do this, or we're going to take advantage of with the market force out there, and this really relates to the fact that on a $166,000 valued home, assessed value, your property tax will go up $50. But that $50 taken over to our population will be put into use for road improvements, eventually, hopefully, to do away with assessments. And this road improvements, if you live in St. Francis, you know what I mean about our roads. Our roads need work. And even after we get done doing the work on those roads, 10 years, 20 years down the road, they'll be worked again. So my point being is this, is that you can't ignore a problem and expect it to go away. If you don't confront the problem, it only gets worse. And so what we're doing here now, with our new mindset of the council and staff working with us, and hopefully the residents understanding, we're taking the money, again, from this particular situation with the rates keeping the same and using the market forces around us from the economy and the construction that is going forward in a positive territory, to use that money for good purposes, like, again, road improvements. I don't like assessments any more than anybody else does, so we're trying to be smart here and get ahead of the game. Like, for instance, Rich has alluded to before about Planet Software and what that's done for us. Planet Software has allowed us to now look at the expenditures we know are coming down the road, and planning and prepping. The success of a plan is only as good as the preparation behind it. And the success of that plan is important in the total picture. It alleviates, chunks of 45–85% rate hikes on water bills and that by gradual raising rates, allowing people to assimilate that into their budgets. That is important. And, in other words, for a couple, let's say, for somebody that might go out to a movie theater once a week or once a month or twice a month, if they know that there's a $25 increase coming to their budget, they'll maybe take out one of those movie times out and assimilate that in their budget, and they're even. What we have done in the past year, we've waited until it's too late, and then our backs are to the wall, and we're forced to these rate changes or rate hikes, and we've got the problem here with the situation with the water and wastewater. So my point is this: we are now thinking long-term. We're taking the blinders off and thinking long-term for progress and development in the city. But that's a pain in the beginning. It will streamline out down the road. So what we need to understand is do we want, as Rob is one of the focus points as far as cutting all that, I'm all for cuts as long as you can show me a long-term dividend, where it doesn't take from column A to get to column B or whatever. So it's a long-term effect. If we cut too much, services will be down. People will not like the roads not being plowed properly, or the parks not being mowed properly, or police service not being done properly, public works or whatever. We can't allow that to happen. It's like when partnering with services. It's nice to partner with services as long as our services are the same or better than what we have at a lower cost. That's a good thing. I know one thing that Paul's saving money on is there's a mixing unit for a water tower that's got to be replaced, which keeps the water flowing in the wintertime so it doesn't ice up. Instead of doing that on a separate occasion and then draining the water tower for maintenance, he's going to bundle it together and do it one time. That saves some money on labor and time down. That's a good thing. Those are smart things. Like buying a new plow truck versus replacing the Florida truck that we bought that may have been a savings in the beginning, but cost us time over time as far as being stuck in the snow, having to go over the roads twice, and cost and labor in that. Now we have a truck that services us better and is made from Minnesota weather. That was a good expenditure. So once again, what this council is doing with staff, and I emphasize this, together, we are spending the money in the right places. Yes, we're spending some money, but because in the past it was running lean and mean. Lean and mean will never get us to the growth factor we need to get to. I hope in the next 5 to 8 years, you will see this town go from 7,400 to 10,000 population. I think that's a good fit, and I think we can control it. Down the road, to get to the 12,500 that the Mid-Council would say that we should be at, that's going to take an expansion of our municipal urban service area, MUSA.
And that's gonna cost us money. And to do that, we will need money to do that. So we need to expand. I cannot emphasize enough that the utility rates will go down as our development picks up. The more people on our system, the lower the rates will get. That's what makes the Met region so interesting as far, and we have some people and staff that live in other cities, not here, who do not pay the water bills that we do, because they're on a system, the Met region facility. That system is based on hundreds of thousands of people, residents hooked up to it. We don't have that luxury here, we only have 7,400. The more people we get in the city, the lower our rates will go. It won't happen overnight. We have something posted on our website here, and I'm going to get it hopefully to the front of the website on some hints about saving water between replacing a flapper and a toilet, between replacing washers and faucets and stuff like this. A trip a second adds up to a lot of water. You can always call staff up at the Public Works, and I'll be glad to send someone out to look and see if it's our meters or whatever that we may be able to help you with or whatever. But the point being is this. Those are just stopgaps or band-aids that keep your rates down so that you don't get overcharged for water you're not using. But in the meantime, to get the rates really down is through development, okay? Quick Trip is coming in 2019. I think that's a big plus. Getting rid of those buildings on 47 that have been there for 14 years is a good thing. It was an eyesore and a safety hazard. I know the chief has told me that he wouldn't even let his police officers go in there without a high hazmat suit, so that's something we don't need here. My concern, of course, has been safety all along, so residents and children should not be able, we have kids breaking into that facility. Now that's gone, we can take that off our plate and off our minds. So, you know, the main thing I can say to you is, instead of going on Facebook and embellishing a problem, making a mountain out of a molehill, call City Hall, talk to staff, email us, whatever, come to a city council meeting with two times at the meeting to say your concern. Let us address it, as I stated in the newsletter, and I'm stating it again in other council meetings. Come here and say what's on your mind. Give us a chance to address it, and let us deal with it. We will look into it, research it, and then at the end of the day, again, as I stated before, it may not be the answer you want to hear, but you will know that we took the time to give you a true answer to the best of our ability. If we're wrong, we'll find out why we're wrong and how to correct it. But we want you to work with us because, again, I truly believe city residents working with staff, working with council is the success of the city long term. And that's the key, again, bottom line of the city. Take the short-term thinking of the process and put the long-term thinking in. This city has some great potential right now. We're at that Y in the road. We just need to be a little patient right now and not rush the gun. Yes, I want shovels in the ground. No doubt in my mind I do. But I want the right shovels in the ground, so it's long-term development, something we want it to come back on our plate 10 years from now and go, why didn't we ask those doggone questions? Why didn't we do our due diligence? Why do we have this problem now when we could have alleviated that problem? And I think that's a good thing here. I just hope the public understands that we're not working against you, we're trying to work with you for a better community. I love the city. I put a lot of time into the city. I didn't do it for the pay, that's for sure. I did it because I love this city and everybody up here does the same thing. We all have our lives together, but you know, I want to see. I would love to be able, in 10 years, to walk down the city and see smiles on people's faces to say, "Look what we've done here. We made the city better, a better place to come." I don't want to lose the rural effect of the city, in my own opinion. I want that. That's a big thing here. But together, we can work urban and rural together for a better city law in the total projected future. Like I say, in our HKGI plan, our St. Francis Forward plan, the council said there would be 3,000 people. Our HKGI planners went down to 1,000. I think that's doable. And again, I would like to be able to get that problem where we run out of a municipal urban service area and have to deal with that. But in the meantime, we have to work where our MUSA is right now to build up our development. I know people would like to see a Target here. I'd like to see a lot of things here myself. As I stated earlier today, Quick Trip came here, they did a market study. When I first became mayor, they weren't ready to come here. 8 months later, I asked Joe Coleman to reach out to them. They came, they liked it, and now they're coming here. That's a good thing. That will continue happening here as long as we get a good reputation out here with long-term development. We've replaced some key figures here between engineering. Hawkins Anderson's back here with us. Sam Vitek is our planner. We have Ellers as our finance. We've got a good staff in place. Everything, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. So the main thing I'm going to ask the public here, and I know I'm taking a little longer here, but I want to emphasize this again. Please be patient here, okay? All of us on this council and staff want exactly what you want. Development, lower rates, and we will get there. It just takes time. It takes 9 months to have a baby. That's what it takes. So I'm just saying, Jim, the trifecta, as I stated before in other meetings, we have our permits are up, from last year we had 38, this year we had 70, and we're already getting permits pulled right now, and it brings us hopefully around the corner, I'm not sure, but I hope so. What I'm saying to you is that the trifecta is here. We have affordable lot prices, we have affordable housing, existing houses, we just need to get the rates affordable, and we will do that in time. So again, patience is the key. To make a mistake now and set us backwards would be ridiculous. We don't need to do that. We've done that a long time, for many years in the past. Like I say again, this is the time to step up and spend some money in the right places to get that progress going forward. So again, please, if you have a question, before you go on Facebook and start the momentum going that way, call up. If your concern is with police, call police. Todd Schweiger, our police chief, is very approachable, and so is our public works director, Paul, John from the community, whatever, Kate. All of our staff is approachable. We have some new members of our staff. One of them today is Lori right here taking our minutes. But like I say again, please work with us and not against us, because we're working for you and we understand that. If that's a thing I know Councilmember Muehlbauer said at the beginning that the old councils weren't as approachable. We are approachable here. You have a problem, we'll address it. So once again, I can't emphasize that enough. As I say this now, I'll go home and I'll probably get some post about this or whatever. But I'm just saying to you, it's frustrating because it doesn't help the situation out. Again, like with the animal control, this problem here might have been able to be alleviated easier when we caught it earlier. But when that firestorm happened on Facebook, it just blew it out of proportion. So we will deal with it. It's just a shame that it's taking us away from our bigger our priorities that are in development right now, which is a key for us. So I think that's enough said here. Just once again, problems, call staff, come to a meeting, let us address it, work with us, be patient. You will get the cuts down in long-term development. Once again, I can say that Mr. Bauer plays an important part looking at the numbers, as well as we all do, and that's why we have a finance committee and all that. But once again, for me, myself, as far as a small businessman for many years, cuts are good when they give a long-term dividend back, not when they don't. I don't want to be the guy that cuts to hurt just to make a short-term look what we've done. I want to be able to say long-term, look what we've done, and go down this road here and say, boy, there's some progress here. We did it smart, we did it with common sense, we did it with some control, and it worked to benefit all facets of the business, of the city. And that is very important to me and this council, I'm sure. So on that, any other business at this time? Then at, let me just get the time right here, 8:02, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.